Hey everyone. So, this is probably the fifth time that I've recorded this. I am going to try my best not to cry throughout the whole thing. That's why I look this bad and swollen and puffy. It's because I've been crying. And I have like a sinus cold too. And I'm also, another thing, I'm also using my webcam in a very poorly lit room. I just have string lights up and my curtain open a little bit to let some sunlight in. So all of that out of the way, um, you might hear my cat trying to get in my room as well. But so what this video is basically what I'm going to be talking about is pregnancy and loss of pregnancy, like stillborns, miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, because I've gone through all of it, unfortunately. And typically you don't. A lot of women, it's very common for women to go through miscarriages, as sad as that is. Like I think it was like 1 in 4 women have miscarriages. And in all honesty, I believe it should be more than that, like statistically, but whatever. Um, but so people that know me or are on my Facebook or even on my channel, 5 years ago I had a stillborn, and in 2019 I had an ectopic pregnancy, and then this past November I had a miscarriage at about 11 weeks. Well, those are the only 3 that I have talked about and have been open about, but that's not the only babies that I've lost. When I was 18, I was staying with my twin sister and her mother-in-law and husband's family, and while I finished up high school, and then I went to college. Well, I went to college, I believe it was January 2014 when I left. In December, right before I left for college, I hung out with some people, and yes, I was 19, yes, I was underage, and yes, I shouldn't have been drinking, so don't come at me. But I was drinking. We were in a small town. There was nothing to do, and we were all drinking. And I put myself in a situation with someone that I thought was a friend, and he was not. He was interested in me and wanted to essentially get me into bed, and I did not want that. I wasn't interested in him at all, and I didn't want to do that. And he didn't take no for an answer, and I ended up getting pregnant. But I didn't tell anyone because I was really scared to. And also, my twin sister was pregnant with my oldest niece at the time, and it was just a really rough pregnancy. And I don't know why, but in my mind, I was like, well, let me just hide it and not tell anyone because everyone else has their own problems and their own like shit that they're dealing with, so I don't need to add mine. So I left and went to college, and it was probably my second week that I was up there in the dorm room, and I ended up having a miscarriage a little bit after 11, like p.m. And not to sound callous or cold, but I wasn't really attached to it because of how it came about. And I wasn't necessarily relieved that it passed away because I was going to try to carry to term and just give it up for adoption. Um, and, and I don't judge. Like, it is a woman's choice, it's her body. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. That's how the laws work. We can do it. If you don't like it, go somewhere where the law's different. But so, um, anyway, I jumped into my schoolwork and I was studying art at the time, and I, of course, was doing all that. Well, I met this person and jumped into a relationship way too fast with him, and I had just turned 19. And maybe it was like 3 months later, I actually found out I was pregnant again. And it was okay. Like, we were okay before I got pregnant or found out I was pregnant. And then I moved in with him, and, just a lot of stuff started happening. And, um, we were just very toxic for each other, and not in the sense of blaming myself for what happened, um, but I'm not going to sit here and put all the blame on him either. I mean, he chose to put his hands on me, and that was that. But I'm not saying I deserved it. I'm just saying some people are toxic for each other and bring out the worst in each other, and we did that. And so, fast forward to 37 and a half weeks with my son, and I went to my doctor's appointment on Tuesday. Everything was fine. Went home. I started feeling kind of sick, like a cold almost. And I had asked, I don't think I asked my sister, but I might have. But whoever I talked to, they were like, well, if you're really uncomfortable, just go to the hospital. Um, but, this is, sometimes it's the symptoms people get. And even my doctor told me, like, sometimes people, like, feel like a cold almost, and like a fever, and like shakes and shivers or whatever you want to call them. And then Wednesday morning, I woke up and I just felt off, like really off. Like, I mean, you know your body, you know when something off is off with your body. Like, for per se, like if your sugar is way too high or way too low, you feel it. Um, or your blood pressure, if it's way too high or way too low, you feel it. And you might not know what it is, but you know something's off than what it normally is, even if you're in pain all the time and it's a different kind of pain. But and also, like, I'm gonna sit here and say the cliche saying, but a mother knows when something's wrong with their kid. And I definitely believe that happens the instant you're pregnant and conceive, because all the hormones, all the instincts, all of it, just it happens right then and there. And so I felt off, and my son he never really was an active baby. Like, he didn't move much. He never kicked me in the ribs, thank God. Like, all these horror stories that I heard before I got pregnant about like how awful it was when they kicked and everything like that. And luckily he wasn't like that. But so I didn't think it was too like off that he wasn't moving much. And then Thursday, I had an appointment because my doctor assumed I was going to be going into labor anyway, because I was 2 centimeters dilated on Tuesday, and then I was 4 on Thursday. And she checked me and she was like, "Hey, we're going to have to go to the hospital." And she was like, "Well, let me just do an ultrasound." Because she pressed on my stomach and she just kind of made this face. And I was like, I just thought it was because I was about to be going into labor and needed to have him. Well, she did the ultrasound on my stomach, and she just like sighed and said, "There is no heartbeat," or "I'm not finding a heartbeat," something along those lines. And it took me, I feel like I sat there for 5 to 10 minutes, but really it was probably only 5 seconds for it to register, but it felt so long. And in my head, I was just like, what did she just say? And I guess that's what I was thinking. And I was like, there's no way. And like, I looked at the screen, and of course, like, my baby's heart was still. And if you've ever seen a baby's heart on a screen, it's almost reminds me of like a hummingbird, like how fast their wings are. That's what it looks like when it's beating, is that fast. And there was nothing. It was just, he was just there, just still. And which I get why they call it stillborn. Um, but because I was 37 and a half weeks long, I was way too far along to do a D&C to remove him, or whatever you want to call it. So I had to give birth to him, and that was the weirdest and most amazing experience I've ever been through in my life, and most painful. And I have a pretty high like pain tolerance, and but I also think my adrenaline was like kicking, because I was just, my nerves were shot and everything too. And of course I felt it, um, because they gave me an epidural, and I felt that. And like, everyone always said like that hurts like really bad, but it didn't hurt for me. Like, I felt the pressure, but like it didn't hurt. It just felt kind of weird, almost like someone was just pushing really hard on my spine. And um, so did the epidural, got my legs up, and then I only pushed like 4 or 5 times, and he was out. I don't know if that's too much information, um, But then my doctor laid him on my chest, and then some nurses like instantly like grabbed him away from me, which kind of pissed me off. Um, but I know it was like a habit for them to like clean him off and stuff and like do all that, which is what they did. They cleaned him off as best they could and weighed him and then did his length. And then they gave him back to me all snuggled up. And it was really hard. It was just really hard to see him like that. And I was 19 at the time, so I was just a baby myself. And yeah, I uh, I had waited till everyone left when I finally got him back. So everyone was like passing him around like he was a damn toy. And when I finally like got my son back, everyone had left the room, and I was just sitting there and holding him like on the bed, kind of in my lap, just staring at him. And I know that sounds weird, but it was the first and only time I was ever going to see him. So I undid his blanket, and just to look at him, like his whole body and everything, and it's really weird to say like your kid has like your hands and feet because I have really long, narrow like feet and hands and skinny fingers and just skinny palms and everything. And he had like my hands and feet, and he had like my twin sister's nose, like clear as day. And he had brown curly hair, and a lot of it. And yeah, it was just crazy to think about, like, and to see like just how much he looked like me. Um, he definitely looked like the baby's father, like more than me. Um, well, I feel like that's how it goes. But and I was just sitting there holding him, looking at him, taking it in, knowing it would be the only time that I could do it. And of course, I was crying and started breaking down, and and then I just started not really screaming, but I did raise my voice, and it was kind of directed at God because I do believe in a God, but it was just more or less directed at God because in my relationship with God has never been like a great one. It's been a rocky one, and then with each thing that has happened in my life, I've just like backslid and strayed even further and further away from what I believe out of anger. I was so mad because I grew up and was raised in this environment, in churches and these places in the South where literally everyone's like, oh, if you put your trust in God, He'll get you through. If He closes a door, He'll open a window or open another door, blah, blah, blah. All those cliche Southern bullshit sayings. And and I'm not sitting here saying that, like, He doesn't guide you, blah, 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 whatever. But if a way happens, it's because I made a way for me. And I know some people are going to sit there and argue and be like, oh, well, God directed you towards that way. I mean, maybe it did. I don't know. And I don't know. Anyway, but I was just so mad, and I was more or less like screaming at like the perception of like God that I had. And I was just so mad, and I was just like, wake up. And then at this point, I was talking to my son, and I honestly, I knew if someone walked in, like, I was going to seem like I was fucking crazy. And I was just sitting there talking to a baby that was dead. And I was just holding a dead baby, sitting there telling it to wake up. Like, I was breaking down, crying over my son, begging him to wake up because he looked like he was sleeping. And that was the hardest thing I had ever been through in my entire life. And I have been through so much shit that I don't share just because I don't want people to see me as that person, as a victim of all these things that have happened. I would rather people, if they knew those things about me, saw that, yes, these things happen to her, but she's stronger because of it. Not, oh, poor pitiful Hannah, the girl who this happened to, and always had that view of me in your mind. So I don't share everything that's happened to me. That's why I don't share all the miscarriages, all the losses that I have, because I don't want to be known as the girl who can't have kids because they always die while I'm pregnant. And that is a very bitter way of saying it, but that's how I thought each time. And so after, all of that, and then I don't remember how long after it was that we had held a funeral for him. And it was okay. I didn't want a funeral for him. I just wanted, and if we did have one, I just wanted it to be me, the baby's father, my sisters, my parents, and his parents. And there were people there that I didn't even know. Like some people, like a couple people from high school came, um, because I had posted about it because I didn't want people asking me how my pregnancy was going, and a lot of people knew I was about to have him, and I didn't want them asking like how I was, how he was, how the baby was. And well, I remember one of my friends, Jessica, was there, um, and I'm gonna actually tag you in this video, and um, and I just really appreciated her being there, because a lot of people sit there and they say that they're your friends, but you really find out who your friends are when you're pregnant in general, because no one talks to you anymore because you can't drink, you can't do anything that you could do, like bad stuff. And when you're 18, 19, that's all people our age wanted to do at that time. And only a few people stuck around, including her. And we've kind of fallen out of touch and haven't really spoken as much, but you know I'm still here for her and she's still there for me, so we're still friends. But yeah, so after that, after losing him and then after the funeral, like I lost it again. And I went home and I was finally starting to feel like myself after like maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and not so much feel like myself, but getting like I started exercising like way too much. I threw myself into my schoolwork. I had 6 or 7 online classes at MGCCC. I aced all of them, which was good, but my mental health was like declining so bad while still being in this situation where this person was putting his hands on me and not sitting here, not defending it, but I'm not trying to put him down either. We have had conversations after that, and I know people are going to be like, why? But, there's no bad blood. Like I said, some people are just toxic for one another. I brought out the worst in him, and he brought out the worst in me. I didn't like who I was with him, and he didn't like who he was with me. But anyway, like, that didn't happen. Like, he didn't put his hands on me for a while after that, and then it started happening again, and I knew I had to leave, so I left and moved to Hattiesburg and transferred to USM. Um, and then I started dating someone else that I had went to high school with and dated in high school, and he and I were together for, I want to say, a little over a year, when I got drunk and went out with a bunch of people and continued to drink, and I put myself in a situation with literally a stranger and accepting a ride home from this person, and I literally was so honestly wasted that I was in and out, and I don't remember anything. Um, so I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not the type of person where I'm going to sit here and call it rape if it's not, but I'm also not going to sit there and not say that it wasn't, because I wholeheartedly believe if I'm not coherent enough to say to say, yes, then I can't say no or yes. So why would you sit there and take advantage of that? But some people aren't. Some people just aren't good people. And for me, that is the hardest thing for me, because I am a good person. Like, it's taken me a really long time to just admit that, but I tend to see the best in everyone, even when there isn't a best or a good thing to see. And I ignore red flags. and putting myself in situations that are potentially dangerous because of that. And I don't really do that now. That was just something that I did from like 19 to 22-ish, 23. And I know I'm only 25, but you know, you learn quickly to change your like actions and because of the consequences. But anyway, I put myself in that situation and I got pregnant by that person. And I wasn't even gonna tell my boyfriend Mark at the time, and I did not mean to say his name, whatever. But I wasn't gonna tell him about being raped, and the only reason that I did is because I found out I was pregnant. And we had talked about it, and he was firm on, I don't want marriage, I don't want kids, I don't want a wife, blah, 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 blah. I was like, cool, you know? And I didn't really want those things at the time either. And I mean, I wanted it eventually, but I was just like, okay, well, I loved him and I wanted him in my life, so whatever it takes to have him in my life. And so I had told him about it, and then my ex best friend at the time lied about a lot of stuff and basically told him that I just went out to a party, got drunk, and just willingly just went and slept with someone when that wasn't the case. But nonetheless, doesn't matter how it came about, I was pregnant and didn't know what to do. Well, I lost a lot of respect for my ex at this time, and if his family or he ever sees it, I know that I'm gonna hear a lot of shit for it, but I really don't care. I I didn't expect him like to sit there and be like, yeah, have the baby, we'll raise it as our own kind of thing. I didn't want that, and I wasn't expecting him to say that. But I was not expecting him to tell me that I either get an abortion or he leaves me. And you know, because like I thought I knew him. You know, there was a lot of stuff that we had talked about, and I'm pretty good at reading people. I'm very observant, and I'm a lot smarter than I look, also. And people don't think I am, and they treat me like I'm an idiot. And he did without like, what makes it worse, it was just indirect and it wasn't intentional, but he made me feel like an idiot all the time. He made me feel stupid, and he made himself seem like he was in a sense smarter than me. And I'm not sitting here saying that he's not or that I'm smarter than him. It's just when you know things about certain like situations or topics and you know so much about that and the other person knows nothing, of course you're going to feel like inadequate to that person and their knowledge on that. But anyway, he gave me an ultimatum to go to Jackson to the abortion clinic. And sorry, um, I get hiccups and burps when my anxiety gets bad. But so he gave me an ultimatum of going and getting an abortion or leaving him. I mean, him leaving me. And you know, I was staying at a different apartment complex, and you know, it wasn't like I was relying on him for anything. But like I said, I loved him at the time, and I just wanted him in my life. And again, how the baby came about, I don't know. I knew how I was. Like, I entertained the idea. I even went to Jackson, and he paid the $150 for the initial counseling session and the briefing. And I know how I am. Like, when they did the ultrasound, had there been a baby in my uterus and I seen it and seen a picture of it, I wouldn't have been able to go through with it. Now, I'm not sitting here condemning anyone that believes in abortion and that does it. I'm not saying I don't believe in it. I feel like it is a woman's choice. It's the law. If you don't like that, go somewhere where that's not the law. And, you know, that's not a debate that I want on here. I don't want people coming at me for it. But so we leave with them. They told me that they did an ultrasound on my belly, and if you're too early, the one on the belly is not going to show, so they have to do one that is like a little camera on this like long thing that goes inside of, you know, your lady business. And so they did that, and my uterus was empty, but my pregnancy tests were positive. So they said that I was either in the process of miscarrying or it was an ectopic pregnancy. So I immediately left and went home, and the next day I made an appointment with my doctor. So after that, went back home, made an appointment with my doctor maybe a week later. Um, or it was the next week, it wasn't like a whole week later, because I didn't want to start to miscarry and then like it not like naturally all come out. And a lot of this is going to be kind of TMI and gross to some people. But so whenever I went, um, no, it wasn't soon after. Um, I went home and I was like, okay, well, what they had told me was more than likely it was a miscarriage, and they gave me medicine for the pain. Well, maybe about a week and a half later, I went to the doctor, and they just did a blood test and a urine test, and she was like, I don't understand why your levels are as high as they are. It's showing that you're still pregnant. So she set up a surgery, like a DNC, to go in and remove it, because she just thought my body just wasn't naturally doing the miscarriage on its own and the baby would pass away. Well, whenever I got down to the coast where my doctor is, and then I got in there, she ended up just doing a laparoscopic surgery, which is like three little things, like little robotic arm type things, where it's either like above your belly button or below it, and then kind of on your hip area, but more or less on the inside. So it was where my like ovaries and reproductive organs are. Well, she said that, and I was put under anesthesia, and I never had been before. But So of course I was out for all of that, and so she said whenever I woke up and came to, I was crying and crying and crying, and it couldn't stop because the anesthesia. And the nurse was like, "It's fine. A lot of people have different reactions. I'm just really lucky on my end because you're not screaming and throwing my tools at me." And I was just like crying, and I was like, "I'm sorry." Like I was apologizing for crying, and then she was just like, "Oh, well, you don't have to apologize, honey. It's fine. Just cry." And then I said I was thirsty, and then I said I'm sorry that I'm thirsty, and just all this stuff. And so I called Mark and told him that I needed him to come get me. And he was completely insensitive about the whole thing. And I'm not sitting here like saying how someone should have felt in that situation. Like, I have no right to tell him how he should have felt. How he felt, everyone's feelings are valid with every situation. There is no right or wrong way to feel. There is a right and wrong way to handle how you're feeling and handle how you communicate how you're feeling. And that wasn't done. He was mad, and then he asked where I was, and I told him that I had to like get surgery with Dr. Diaz. So he assumed I was at my doctor's office and went to Biloxi when I was in D'Iberville when I was in Biloxi. So he called me and he was like, "Where are you at?" And I was like, "I'm on like the third floor, whatever." He's like, "There is no third floor," and he was mad. He was cussing at me and everything else, and he was like, "That's beside the point." Anyway, our argument is beside the point. So anyway, he gets there and gets me and everything like this, and the nurse is like reassuring me. She's like, "You can still get pregnant, no, 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 no." And and of course, like, he just doesn't care. He doesn't say anything to the nurse. He just grabs my stuff for me and like make sure I'm fine to change and stuff. And then we leave. And I thought he was going to be bringing me back up to Hattiesburg, or I was just going to be staying the night with him, and we were just going to go home where I could go to sleep because I just had surgery. No, we literally met his best friend and his best friend's wife, and don't get me wrong, they are the nicest people ever. I really bonded with her. I'm not going to say their names. I really bonded with her, and I really liked them. No, we literally went out to eat. And mind you, I don't eat crawfish. I'm allergic to a lot of seafood, so I'm scared to try that shit. And so we go and we get like this big ass thing of crawfish for each of us to eat, and I'm just sitting there in literally the worst pain of my life. And he's just talking about like all this stuff and just knocking back beers and just having fun with his friends. And to me, Like, roles reversed, I'd have brought you wherever you wanted to go. If you wanted to go home, I'd bring you home. If you wanted to come home with me and lay with me and just sit there and be with me, I'd have done that. But two different people. Um, and I understand it wasn't his baby and how it came about. And then, my ex-friend at the time convinced him of it not being like his nor all this stuff, and he just started all this stuff and all these lies and rumors and shit. And so he didn't trust me. And and I honestly, like, I told him white lies here and there, and so he had every right not to trust me, and that was fine. But it was just the insensitive, like, nature of how he was acting, and that was how he would get, and which is eventually like why I left. And like I've said before, like I loved him when I left, like, and I will still always care about him and hope that he has a wonderful life without me, and not in a bitter way, but I wasn't good enough. And before anyone says something like, you're good enough, you need to start believing it, blah, 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 I wasn't good enough for him in my mind, whether it was me overthinking things and making it to where my own head was telling me I wasn't good enough, or him telling me indirectly that I wasn't good enough. And, but, and it wasn't like I was sitting there trying to fix him or him trying to fix me. Like, we had our issues, we're both human, but I just think at that time in my life, like, I don't know, he just had a lot of stuff that he needed to work on, and so did I. And I felt like it was better to do that separately than together. So when I moved back up to Hattiesburg, um, well, okay, I was in Hattiesburg at that time when I had the ectopic pregnancy. I had got evicted from the apartment wrongfully, and then I moved in with him from June to October, I believe, and then I moved back up to Hattiesburg in the apartment that I'm in now, and I've been here ever since. And we were still together, and then went through like turn or whatever through my work, and it was just one thing after another, and I was just, my mental stability, like, normally is already pretty low, like on a level that's normally here, it's already here on a daily basis. It was like non-existent. Like, it was just, I couldn't even pretend to be happy. And like anyone that has depression, you know what a mask is. You know what it's like to sit there and pretend to be happy when you're not. I couldn't even do that. I didn't have the energy. I wasn't doing anything. And I had lost like 50 pounds because I had to walk up and down all these stairs and everything too. And I wasn't eating. I just was falling apart emotionally. And I couldn't do it, and I couldn't explain it to him either. And not like he made it hard to explain to him or communicate with him. Um, I just didn't know how to put it in words, and I didn't know how to say how I felt at the time. And I didn't think that that was fair to him or right to do that to him. And, now I can say that and sit here and think of all the things that I wish I could have said to him, because initially I asked him for a break because I wanted to be with him. Like, I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Mark. And, he sat there and said, well, I don't do breaks. And I don't either, because it always ends up leading to breakups, or someone goes and usually the guy goes and screws someone, honestly. But, and so he was like, okay, well, yeah, we can just do a break. Well, and I asked him for space, and then he didn't give me space. Like, he just got overbearing. He would text me every 5 minutes and call me every 5 minutes. And then he showed up here. Granted, I had 104 fever, and he was dropping medicine off and just trying to make me feel better. But when someone tells you that they need space, I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you. That's what a break is. And it just got to be too much. And a lot of his issues were surfacing, and I couldn't deal with all of his issues as well as my own. So I ended things, and initially we left off on a good foot, and then I, not long after, honestly started talking to my ex, Austin, and which wasn't fair to Mark, honestly, and it is what it is at this point. I felt bad about it. I still feel bad about it, but it's the past, and I can't do anything to change it. And it was probably like 3.5 weeks later, I jumped into a relationship with Austin, knowing that he was gonna hurt me. Like, I saw the fucking red flags. But he was here, and that's so shitty. But when you feel like crap about yourself, there's nothing anyone can say or do that makes you feel worse about yourself than you already do, and the things you already think about yourself on a daily basis. Yeah, I'm ugly. I already think that. I'm not smart. Yeah, I already think that. I'm not good enough. Yeah, I know. I tell myself this every single day. And so, fast forward with Austin, and not too long later, we break up and then get back together because I was pregnant. And then he left after an argument, thought he was going to come back, and he didn't. That's just the summed up version of him being a piece of shit. Um, Not really. He was just, again, people feel how they feel. It's justified. It's valid. There's just a way to communicate it and handle it. And he was 22, I think. Yeah, 22, and I was 25. So, yeah, that was my first mistake. Not saying if you're younger, then you're dumb or you just aren't mature, but he wasn't mature. And he just had a lot of growing to do. He was just very immature. And so after he left, it was like pulling nails, like trying to sit there and have a simple conversation with him about the pregnancy. And he brought me to 2 appointments, and it was just so hard. And I was like, look, I need your help. I need your support. Like, I need to know you're going to be here for me when I'm pregnant. And he'd be like, yeah, yeah, I am. And he'd say all these things. He'd tell all his friends and his family that works here where I worked at the same time, and how he was doing all this stuff, wanted to do all this, but he wasn't actually putting that to actions. And so, fast forward, and we fought one Sunday, and then the next Monday I had an appointment, found out it was gone, and then the following Friday had the D&C done. So, all of those losses. And then, before my stillborn, forgot to mention, had a miscarriage before that, with that person who put his hands on me, but he didn't put his hands on me at that time. It just happened. And then had one after my son. And then, so it's the 3 miscarriages, the stillborn, the entire pregnancy, and then the other miscarriage. So, yeah, been through a lot. And that's just with babies and losses. That's not even my childhood trauma. But anyway, basically my point to this whole video is I'm at a point in my life where I feel ready for kids, and it just doesn't seem like it's a possibility for me because all the tests that I've had done, like on everything, every part of me, it's supposed to be okay. It's supposed to be working. I'm supposed to be able to have a kid with no issue. Like, nothing is wrong physically with my body at all. And like with the last miscarriage, like, I mean, yes, I have diabetes, and that's why that one passed away. But people that are diabetic have babies all the time, but they usually know they're diabetic prior to. I didn't. But when you have so many babies, and at whatever point in the gestation period, in weeks, they pass away, it made me feel like a failure. It made me feel like the one thing that I'm supposed to be able to do as a woman and to protect my baby, and I couldn't even do that. And especially after losing a baby, and the first thing someone tells you is, you're young, you can have another one. Don't sit there and say that to people. I know you mean well and your intentions are well, but what I heard was, you're young, have another baby, replace it. No, that is not what I was about to do. And that's not what I am trying to do. Like, I will always talk about my son, and then this last one that I lost at 11 weeks, like, I was a week from knowing if it would have been a boy or a girl. And I like to think I know it would have been a boy, but I don't know. But yeah. It's not easy by any means. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. And each time, and some women, I understand when people say that I'm strong. It's because some women fall apart completely with one, and they can't get control back over their life and they let it consume them. I understand that, and they're valid feeling that way. It's not easy, but the way that I view everything that's ever happened to me is you can't let it consume you, because then you won't be you anymore. You'll just be bitterness caused by someone else's actions, and you don't need to bear those consequences when it wasn't your doing. And I have depression, so I can't let it. I have to live by that. I have to sit here and find some way to cope with each thing that I've gone through, because if I don't and I let it consume me, it will consume me. Like, I will not get out of bed literally all day. I will literally sleep from the time I lay down at night until maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and get up, watch a little TV, and go back to bed. And as gross as it sounds, I won't shower, I won't eat, I won't drink any water, I won't do anything. And then people are like, oh, just get up, just shower, you'll feel better after you shower. And the thing is, like, even when you have a cold, like you need energy, getting in that shower will help, but you don't have the energy to get in the shower. So it just hurts, especially when people do say you're young and you can have another one. Like, I understand I'm young, but also you don't need to be telling everyone that, because you don't know that person's story. You don't know if that was the only baby that they could have had, and can only have. And telling them that their baby's in a better place is bullshit. I'm sorry. If you believe in heaven, if you believe in God, if that's your beliefs, I'm not trying to knock that down. But to me, that is bullshit to say to someone, because in my mind, the better place would have been in my fucking arms or in my home. And my anger just came out more. But, and I do still have anger, obviously, from it. But it isn't something someone should get used to, but I'm used to it at this point, where I've found ways to cope with it that I just keep using. And it's not something that I want anyone to go through. And I don't hate anyone. I do dislike people, but I don't hate anyone. And I wouldn't, the saying, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Like, I wouldn't. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I wouldn't wish it on the baby. Like, it's a baby. But I just have been having a really rough time at life lately. I am just now getting a job after about 3 months of not having one, almost 4, and really struggling. I have had to borrow money for rent, and I'm very stubborn, and I don't like to accept help, because I've been on my own for a while and I've taken care of myself and I've always had a job. And it's just been really rough. It's been really hard. And then it's just been one thing after another. So I don't know. I'm at peace with a lot of it, not all of it, but I'm at peace with a lot of it, because I have no other choice but to be. Because, like I said, I don't want it to consume me. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to hop on here and just share, I guess, all my losses and essentially how I felt through those and now. But thanks for watching if you did end up watching it all the way through.